Brought to you by MediaTek. Hi, and welcome to the Mobile Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Miriam Chouar, and today is Thursday, July 31st, 2025, and my guest is the wonderful Rahul Sandil of MediaTek. Hi, Rahul, how are you?
I'm doing great, Miriam. Thank you so much for inviting me to do this and giving me the opportunity to chat with you.
Well, no, thank you for being my guest. I've been looking forward to having you on the show for quite a while now. AI is obviously the big hot topic right now, and you guys are, obviously right in the center of it. And in fact, I recently got the Lenovo Chromebook
Yeah.
Plus 14 with the companion chip in it. And, I've been a big fan of Chromebooks for a long time, but this thing is probably the best I've ever used. Look at that, showing it off. Yeah, mine is unfortunately already in my bag. But hey, look, AI and MediaTek. This is going to be an interesting conversation because I'd love to hear your take on MediaTek's AI strategy, especially how it fits in with the rest of the industry, since there's a lot of talk out there and, a lot of it is kind of pie in the sky, and you guys are always really down to earth. So where does AI's MediaTek strategy fit into the rest of the industry?
It's a great question, Miriam. And I think to fully understand our AI strategy, you have to kind of go back to the DNA and to the ethos and the roots of MediaTek, right? We are very grounded in our vision, right? To leverage technology, drive innovation, create new technology, partnerships, but eventually the goal is simple: enhance and enrich everyone's life. And that kind of forms the cornerstone of our AI strategy as well, right? Um, and if you kind of look back at our history, right? Uh, 26 years powering all these devices from the very first kind of DVD players to optical drives, and now all the way to cars and data centers. It is grounded in that vision. So if I really had to summarize kind of three core aspects of our AI strategy, number one, accessibility, right?
Okay.
It is kind of cornerstone of what MediaTek does. Number two, you have to kind of tackle issues around privacy and bias and as part of that accessibility, right? That's second.
Right.
And then third is democratizing that accessibility through scalability. Get out there in the most number of devices, so to enhance people's lives, to enrich people's lives. So that really is the core three-pillar framework for how we look at AI.
So you said the second pillar is privacy and security essentially rolled in together.
Yes.
And it kind of ties in with accessibility. I think those are really, really good points, because a lot of the industry doesn't seem to be caring about some of these aspects as much as they should, in my opinion.
Yep.
So, of course, you work with partners, right? So, obviously the phone manufacturers use your chipsets, the TV manufacturers use your chipsets. You're the number one chipset in all the smart speakers out there, which obviously are full of AI. How do you work with your partners to get them to be on board with these things? Because obviously, they have their own agendas on AI. Like, how does that work?
Yeah, I don't think the agendas are that divergent. I think one, we've got all, like I said, that history of working with partners. Like collaboration is a really core part of our DNA, right? When I was joining MediaTek, it's been 7 months now, a little bit over 7 months, and someone told me, one of my mentors told me, "Oh my God, it's such a great company. It's one of the friendliest companies you can work for."
Agreed.
And that is such a core part of who we are, right? So I think we have an open, trusting, and a very direct relationship with the entire ecosystem of partners. We are able to sit down and understand their vision and understand what goals they have for their technology, their products. And then we are able to integrate into those goals while kind of holding our own leadership, whether it's on SoC development, it's on R&D, or it's on package designs. And that kind of really works well. There's a lot of proof points for that, right? Recently, at Computex, we had Jensen on stage, and we talked about DGX Spark, the AI supercomputer for which we co-engineered the GB10 chip with NVIDIA, right?
Very
Then
exciting product, by the way.
yes, a great product, right? And then we've also announced our NVLink Fusion partnership, where we are one of the early platform integrators who are going to be enabling NVLink for custom ASIC solutions, or whether it's the partnerships we've developed with our device OEMs, whether it is some of the leading brands in the world, whether it's Sony or Oppo or Vivo or um, Fire TV devices, right? We are we are well. I want to be careful when I say this. So we are kind of everywhere, but in a nice way. And
I
and
love
we are
it.
we are, we are powering.
This is a perfect, like, I feel like it's almost like a tagline for your company. We're everywhere, but we're in the nice way.
Yes, yeah, and we are, and but again, it goes back to that ethos
Right.
that every person in MediaTek truly believes that we have an opportunity. We've been given this responsibility to enhance and enrich everyone's life, and that's what we're kind of driving to.
Fantastic. So what you're saying basically is because of your ethics, because of your approach to AI, your customers are really coming to you because they have the same mindset in the first place,
That's
in
right.
many ways, right? Which I think is really a great thing, because I agree when you said, like, I think all of us in the media have a strong connection with MediaTek simply because, you are one of the friendliest companies out there when it comes to semiconductors.
Yep.
And there is something to be said about the people who run a business, right? And I think that this is an area where traditionally MediaTek has been really, really strong, is in building relationships with people.
Yep.
So how do you think AI is changing the way we interact with our devices? Like specifically, there's some obvious things out there, right? Like we've had, machine learning making our cameras and our photos better for quite a while now. And you guys
Yep.
are leaders at that with the ISPs in your SoCs on the phones, right? And tablets, of course. But there are some less tangible things. And now with generative AI, things are a little more blurry, right? Like people are still not quite clear, what does that mean to have AI on a device? I think the layperson today thinks of AI as just generative AI. You and I, everybody else that's listening to this podcast is more technical. We all know AI has been used in the sense of machine learning. It's making the Waymo cars outside my windows drive around safely. That's machine learning. That is not empirical, generative. Some of the decisions are starting to be made using generative AI.
Yeah.
But I think overall, how would you explain to people, this like how AI is changing our interactions with our products?
It's a great question. I think it kind of goes back to the first pillar I talked about, right? The accessibility. And let's look at that accessibility through the concept of an interface, right? And now let's kind of look at computing paradigms, right? Uh, Pretty much anyone who uses a computer, for most part, uses an input devices, right? You've got a keyboard, you've got a mouse, and then with the advent of some amount of voice, we've been speaking and having Zoom conferences, so we're using a mic and maybe using a speaker. So now you've got your input output devices and you've got your screen. And I think what AI is doing is it's kind of reimagining or helping us reimagine the interface in itself for more accessibility.
Right.
So one is, which I'm using a lot, natural language.
Yeah, and that's a big one. Honestly, I think we've kind of nailed that one right now, pretty much.
Yep.
The reasoning part is
getting pretty good.
Is hard, right? Like we still don't have that nailed, but I find that I can have conversations with my assistants now, especially Gemini Live, which is what I use, where I'm like, wow, it's really able to follow what I'm saying without any issues.
Yeah, I think it's pretty phenomenal, but I do feel there's still a lot of room for improvement. For example, like, in my home, I've got 2 teenagers, 3 dogs. My 3 dogs, Chewie, Solo, and Luke. We're a Star Wars family.
We need to have them on the show next time. Just make an appearance, okay?
And I think I'm having great conversation with AI, but I think the AI is not able to fully distinguish between ambient sound and my voice. So I find it getting cutting in and out, right? So tons of room for improvement. But I think that's where MediaTek comes in as well, right? We have this technology platform called the NeuroPilot SDK, right? It's compatible with Android neural networks. It's compatible with TensorFlow, with all kinds of different other platforms. And what we're doing is we're bringing the power of MediaTek's NPU performance, right, to these devices. So what happens is, like I talked about this example of distinguishing between my voice, an ambient sound, or the barking of a dog, or some
Right.
noise in the kitchen, is you need more performance on the device where the AI is going, oh, wait, I can distinguish between these two sounds and I don't need to stop speaking just because I heard an ambient sound. So like that, where our NPUs are coming in. So interface. So voice is definitely one. Which I'm very excited about is vision,
Oh, yeah.
right? Super excited about that because that again really is a paradigm shift for accessibility. If I'm able to point my device or my camera at various other objects and have AI even kind of walk me through my surroundings,
Yeah, for
right?
people who are vision impaired, like again,
Yes.
Gemini Live is what I've used for that, and it's uncanny how good it is. Like 90% of the things in my house, I figured out.
Yeah, and like
You
I'm
know,
teaching myself now how to speak a very basic Mandarin, right?
hmm
And I'm using kind of that point, look at text and be extremely seamless without making errors in kind of the interface with the computer, so I can kind of read, speak, and write using AI in a different languages. So again, that NPU performance is very critical. So I think just to recap, right? We've had the traditional interfaces, but these new interfaces with natural language processing, image recognition, these are going to be kind of game changers for AI. And for everyone out there, think of AI as your assistant. And we've heard this word pretty commonly used in technology over the last 10 years. But this one is kind of actually really
it's
smart.
starting to happen. Yeah,
Yeah, it is actually really
context
smart.
context is starting to be a thing, and
Yes,
not just like broken context. Like it
that is
still
correct.
messes up, but I've noticed that it's starting to keep track and remember, and that's a big key part of it for sure.
That's right.
So, obviously, your systems on chips, your SoCs, your chipsets for mobile particularly, but also now, in TVs because people talk to their TVs, and in speakers because of course smart speakers are
Yeah.
the kind of the one of the gateways here, are getting much more powerful all the time. And obviously, you're democratizing that by bringing that technology down every year. When do you think we're going to get to a point where like right now, I think smartphones are kind of a commodity, right? You can pick
Yep.
up any phone and it's going to be good. Even like the cheapest $150 Android phone is completely perfectly usable these days. When do you think we're going to get to a point where the average chipset out there on any device is going to be good enough to actually have that level of quality we're talking about?
I think look, it's already there, but you have to kind of differentiate use cases as well, right?
Right.
There's going to be people using chipsets which are very powerful today, whether it's in phones or in TVs or smart devices in your house. But then you also have users who are going to need a supercomputer on every desk, which we've done with
And that's
DGX
kind of where I
Spark,
was
right?
going, right? I think that there's an era coming of the AI supercomputer that's kind of like the personal AI supercomputer. And like,
Yeah.
how do we get there? And when we do, does that create two classes of devices out there? Some that don't have that power to do that, and some that do. And how
Yep.
do you make it again more accessible?
Yeah, I think it kind of goes down to the core of our strategy, right? And what I kind of, at least personally for me, I like to kind of phrase it as the 3 A's, right? You got to balance the accessibility, affordability, and availability, right? And you have to address a pretty wide audience, from the pro users to the coders out there, or the ones who are actually building AI models, right? Even doing bunch of inference or training on large sets of models. So I think MediaTek is in a very unique position. We've obviously have leadership in smartphones. We've been leading for last 18 quarters, I believe, is the data point. We are leaders on smart devices, whether it's your smart speakers and smart TVs. We are now leading. We've been leading on Chromebooks. We've been leading on personal computing, and now we are entering into smart
Right.
supercomputers with the DGX Spark. We are into cars now. So
Yeah. Well,
cars
that's
is a
another
whole
big
new
part, right?
paradigm around AI because your car has to be safe, get you to where you need to get to while giving you all these options whether it's self-driving or smart infotainment, and doing it at minus 20 degrees in
Yeah.
ice cold weather, and doing it in 130 degrees in the middle of, I grew up in New Delhi summer, right?
Right.
And so we're in a very unique position that we are kind of leading across all these different technology sets. And I'm super excited that we are now into data center ASIC and building custom ASIC
Yeah,
for data center as
absolutely.
well. So it's
You know,
very unique position.
I think a lot of people, not you, not MediaTek, not me either, but I think a lot of people underestimate the car as a platform simply because it's so controlled. You know, and I've said this before, you know, when audio took off, it was some of the best innovations we've had in audio and DSP and stuff came from the car world because it was a controlled environment. So you could create a sound system that was superior to anything you could do short of a custom, you know, $1 million studio. And
That's right.
I think the AI assistant is going to evolve faster because of people using it in the car than any other platform, even mobile. I think that because you're driving and it's really imperative you can talk to your car and ask it to do something for you and it cannot screw up. Right?
Yeah.
Whereas on your phone, you can repeat yourself. You can have it make a mistake. You can look at the screen to confirm. You cannot do that when you're driving. So I think these assistants that are, you know, generative AI, so they're today problematic, are going to be highly driven by what we as technologists manage to work out in the car. And so being part of the car is super important. But of course, you know, data centers as well, mobile devices, you know, wearables is a big part too. AI is becoming very critical in analyzing, you know, our sensor data, our biometric data, so that you know when you sleep and how well, and make recommendations around it. So I'm really excited with all that. Do you have any parting thoughts before we wrap up?
Yeah, I'm super excited as well, right? And you know, with cars not only being passive, right? Cars are being two-way. They're analyzing everything around you and processing it and learning from that. I think the few things I'm super excited about, and I'll leave with a parting thought as well, is I'm excited about health, right? And what this technology, especially AI, and if you make it affordable and accessible for all, which is kind of the cornerstone of what we do, what that could do for health outcomes, right? I'm using smart rings, I'm using smart sensors at home.
Same.
Super awesome. Yep, I got two. I'm trying on a new one.
Nice. And a watch too.
Yeah, and so that is going to be. But I think at the end of the day, you know, we do need to remind ourselves as people in the technology arena. You know, I've been so blessed and fortunate to have been given this opportunity to have a career in technology, that too in marketing, is that there is a very significant responsibility which rests on our shoulders, and MediaTek takes that very seriously.
100%.
It's the ethical dimensions, privacy, people's personal data. If people are trusting us to share more data with us, and they're sharing more data around their health, where they go, how they drive, you know, what their kids are doing, what people are eating, there's so much data out there. And I think making sure that, you know, we are taking that seriously, taking that personal data storage. That is why, you know, I'm really excited about more on-device AI, where data is not just
flying out there in the cloud, God knows where,
knowledge of it. And obviously, as we are kind of building now ASIC for data center, we are bringing some of those kind of concepts of privacy on device to privacy in the cloud as well. So that we have a real role, but I think more of an appeal to anybody who's kind of in AI, who's fascinated or is using it like I am. And you know, we have a tremendous responsibility, and let's use that power, really going back to MediaTek's vision, to really enhance and enrich everyone's life. And that really becomes core.
I think that's great. You know, I think I'm hoping more tech companies listen to this podcast, like, you know, execs, and go like, oh, maybe we need to focus more on these things. So listen, Rahul, we could talk about this forever, but I need to have you back on the show, and we can pick one of those topics and talk about it. You know, obviously I cover automotive a lot. Health is a big important part as well. Mobile has been my bread and butter for years. So let's have you back on to chat about some of that stuff. And thanks so much for your time today. Really appreciate you having you on the show.
Thanks so much, Miriam. And thanks to you and your team and for having me here. And I look forward to more interactions and see you around somewhere soon in one of the conferences coming up.
Fantastic. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
And folks, we're back with the awesome Jason Howell. Oh my God. Jason, are you okay?
I'm all right. I'm just really excited. No, it's great to be here. Thank you for the invite, Miriam. It's a lot of fun to do this podcast with you.
That's fantastic.
You got me at the end of the day. I'm now like at the end of my ropes. I've got dinner on the other side of this podcast. This is the frazzle point that most people don't see.
Oh, okay. So that's what happens. You never record at this time then?
Well, actually, I do. Android Faithful records at 5 p.m. every Tuesday. But let me tell you, at the end of Tuesday, I am ragged. So,
yeah, I bet. And so don't forget, folks, to listen to Android Faithful, one of the best podcasts on mobile out there.
Oh, shucks. Thank you.
Oh, come on. I'm slightly biased because I used to, host the previous incarnation of it. But no, you guys do great work. Speaking of which, you guys talked about the Z Fold 7 this week. So I feel like we should both kind of cover these. And like I've mentioned them many times on the show, I did a first impressions, but I want to kind of tip my toes into the review process here on the Z Fold and the Z Flip. And then, we got a very few little news items to cover, and we can dive into some leaks that are upcoming products. So what are your thoughts on the Z Fold 7, Jason?
Well, let me just preface by saying I haven't done a full review personally of the Z Fold 7. We did do like a collective review last night on Android Faithful, because pretty much the entire cast that was there has one in their possession, except for me. I don't have one in my possession. But Florence Ion, co-host on the show, was going camping and passing through where I live in Petaluma. And she's like, I've got the Z Fold. I don't want to take it camping. I'm going to destroy it while I'm camping. Can I leave it with you for 72 hours? So I got like 3 days with the Z Fold. And I think my big takeaway, no surprise, because it seems like everybody has kind of the same opinion on this, is wow, this foldable feels like a normal phone when it's folded now.
It's kind of amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. It's really impressive. Like, I'm so used to the foldable and the pocket feeling like this big chunky brick, and this thing didn't feel like that. Like when I put it side by side with the Pixel 9a, they are the same thickness when the Fold 7 is folded. And so, if you think a Pixel 9a in your pocket feels just like a candy bar phone, so will this. And I think that's really impressive. Samsung's iterated very well.
It also has a very satisfying, chunky sound.
Now, okay, so I got at it. That's very satisfying. What do you think of the hinge tightness? Because I kind of found it like I want it to be a sturdy hinge, but because it's so narrow, because the edges are so narrow and the hinge is so like good. Getting my like fat fingers to actually open the phone sometimes was really hard. I had a couple of almost drops because I got too confident, and I was like, zoop.
Yep, no, that is definitely an issue. Let me elaborate a little more. Before I do, though, I want to remind everyone, in case you heard that sound, that I was showing off on video. For those of you who don't know, there's a video version of this podcast. You can get it on Patreon. So every week, you can subscribe and get it on Patreon. You get it in advance, a day in advance. So if you want to see me handling this phone on video, subscribe to the Patreon, patreon.com/TNKGRL. I agree with you on the hinge. So I like the resistance overall. I think the hinge overall feels, Samsung has really perfected the hinge. Like you know that obviously what makes me a little different than most, at least the Western tech journalists, is that I have all the Chinese folding phones. I have them all.
You've seen ultra thin
I've
before.
used them. I've reviewed them.
Yes.
So I'm coming from about 4 months now of using the Oppo Find N5, which is exactly the same form factor, same thickness, same size, same, but has bigger battery, has better camera. So I'm kind of coming into it being very judgy, right? Because I'm like, I know what China can deliver. And so this, I still have to say, Samsung definitely, this is what, Gen 7, year 6, whatever, of their folding phones, they still make the best hinges. Now, don't get me wrong, the competition is very, very close, but there's something really tight and maybe a little too tight about this hinge. Like, I think it feels like indestructible. And by the way, I want to add this. You should all check out Jerry Rig Everything, the YouTube channel, because Zach over there did a bendy and, well, generally a very destructive test like he does on all the phones. Like, I think you like the stuff he does to these phones, like the sand and all that, it's brutal. Anyway,
it's brutal.
He tried
hard to watch at times.
He tried to bend it backwards, right? And he didn't succeed. Like I couldn't believe he didn't break it. Like I really thought that like nobody, I mean, I didn't try it, right? So I wasn't about to. So that he couldn't break it. Anyway,
that's impressive.
That like bending it backwards, like the other way that it's supposed to go when it's fully open. And so what I'm saying is that the hinge, they've perfected the hinge. I have to admit that I think it's a combination of the hinge's sturdiness and the fact that it's people think the hinge is has equal friction. It doesn't. Like it has spring-loaded close and spring-loaded open. Like it gets to a certain point where it wants to fully open and to a certain point where it's to fully close. And I think the combination of the spring loading, the general tightness and solidity and strength of that hinge, combined with the very, very thin borders, like the thinness of the phone, makes it harder to open, I think, than average. And it's hard for me to tell because on my Oppo, I have a half case. Like the back of my phone is a plastic case, so I get a bit more grip on one side. But I feel that maybe the Oppo is a little easier to open. And the Honor that I had, it's hard to tell. They all are a little challenging. And this is I think if you're going to drop this phone, like this is how you're going to drop it, by trying to open it and slide it.
I had two different moments where like my heart was beating fast because that almost happened. Like what I thought, and I'm curious to hear if maybe this exists on some of the phones that you've checked out, the kind of overseas competition, let's say. But when I was using this phone and trying to, get into it and open it and everything and having problems, like even a slight little notch, like in the center of the edge, right where they connect, like a slight little divot that's perfect for your finger to like fit in there and be able to pry, like something like that would be really nice. Cause then where your fingers go in order to open it. I realize that probably poses some, difficulties and challenges.
You bring up a good point. And I think that, like the Edge, the S25 Edge, which, I've extensively reviewed on the show and I think is a really great product despite the, again, questions on battery life and on cameras, which we're going to get to on the Z Fold as well. I think the Z Fold and the Edge are very similar in their limitations, and the limitations are around battery life and cameras. But that being said, I think, I feel like this is not a phone you want to put in a case, the Z Fold 7, because, or maybe just a half case, like a super thin half case, like what comes in the box with the Oppo, and you can get from Samsung. They have this carbon fiber material, aramid or whatever. That's a half case. I'm talking about half cases here, and I think you could do that. That might give you a bit more grip. But I think you're right that this is something they need to resolve or come up with a solution to, and I think we'll get there eventually.
Yeah, I mean, like I don't want to complain about it because a solid, like well-designed hinge is so important to a successful foldable. I feel like if you've got a weak or wobbly or anything like that hinge, it impacts the entire kind of your entire perception of that phone. In some ways, hinges on the quality of the hinge.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's critically important. So I don't want to. Yeah, exactly. I don't want to. Like deny the hinge, its awesomeness. It's great. It's just that in combination with the very narrowness of each individual side just doesn't give the fingers much friction to grasp onto when you are opening it. So just be careful.
I think what they could do is knurl some of the edge there. Like, like the physical process of making the aluminum have like little bumps on it. It's called knurling. Knurl.
I thought you were saying narrow and like come out to like a teardrop or something.
No. KNUR knurling. Okay. It's a manufacturing process. You're an audio guy. When you have a volume knob on a device that has that kind of like diamond shaped cutting on it. Like it's a metal thing. That's
and
called,
it's easier to grip.
That's called knurling. So if they knurled just like an inch on each side, kind of somewhere in the middle, they wouldn't have to make it thinner or narrower. Like it would that would give you the resistance. Part of the metal frame, and you would be able to grab it better Or,
Love
as
it.
you said, an indent, but an indent would require removing some surface area and volume from the
Totally.
product, right?
Yeah, 100% understand. Like that would bring with it other kind of limitations. and
Oh, we're
everything. So
certainly nerding out now.
that's what we do around
Yep.
here.
So here's the thing. For me, I have to say that even though this is the exact same thickness to the like exact numbers, open and close as the Oppo, I think that it's my favorite industrial design of any foldable I've used, in the sense that I like that squareness of it, because the Chinese equivalents have kind of more, like, first of all, they have rounded corners slightly, and they also like Galaxy Edge kind of rounded corners. And then they have like also slightly rounded edges, like on the sides themselves, right? Which the Edge doesn't have, but the Chinese phones have. So you can see it there on the Edge, like that basically it's rounded corners, but it's still perfectly flat on the edges, right? Whereas imagine on the Chinese phones, you've played with the Moto Razr, right? You know how the edges are slightly rounded? That's another way they could solve this problem. But then it would take away from this, what I think makes this stand out and make it feel even thinner than the competition that has exactly the same size, because it's such a monolith in your hand. But it's also light comparatively, right? Which I think is really impressive. So between that design, that squareness, and the hinge, the solidity of the hinge, and the fact that you can really tell Samsung's experience, and the crease is very minimal, but that's also true of Oppo and Honor, so it's not that unusual yet. But all of that to me is what makes the Z Fold stand out. And of course, it's a phone sold in the US with support from Samsung for, screens and warranty, and with support from the carriers for all the networking bands, including millimeter wave, which is, by the way, something I haven't mentioned on the podcast yet. There's no visible millimeter wave antenna window on that phone. Look at your Edge, and you'll see that on one of the edges, there is like a little plastic window.
Did that?
Right.
Oh, no, wait.
Let's look for it. I can't really see it because your video is a little blocky for me right now. But yeah, it's basically like an oval, like a pill-shaped cutout somewhere on the end.
Oh, I see. On the side. Oh, now thank you for finally.
That's millimeter wave antenna. Every phone you look at, the Pixels have it, the iPhones have it, the Galaxies have it, but the Z Fold 7 does not have it yet. It does have millimeter wave support.
That's so interesting.
I don't know where they stuck the antenna. It's like a mystery. Anyway,
does that impact the efficacy of?
I don't know, because I didn't test it on Verizon, and Verizon is the only thing with millimeter wave, and so I don't know. I should probably test that, since I have millimeter wave near my place in SF. But here's the thing: I think that I'd also add the software, which for me is not my favorite software. I'm not a One UI person, but I appreciate that One UI delivers an experience that pleases a lot of people. Has possibly the best AI implementation, like package, like all the different AI bits in all the different apps and all the different OS corners is kind of very coherent and cohesive on Samsung. Sometimes I feel like possibly more than Google, because Google really just has Gemini doing everything, whereas I think Samsung has, a little better things with their image AI, not the generative stuff, but the like deleting objects, moving objects, stuff like that. They seem to do a better job. Same with I feel like the portrait separation of like hairs and stuff, Samsung seems to do better than Apple or Google. All I'm trying to say is that all of that makes the Z Fold 7 a kind of hard to resist package, right? Because the drawbacks for me are pretty significant on this phone compared to the competition. And they are mostly around battery life, cameras, and the sustained, like if you're gaming, sustained thermal performance of the phone, right?
How does it compare price-wise? Because I mean, this is a ridiculous.
So the Chinese phones are cheaper, right? They're cheaper by $100 or $200 each. But that's not. That's the global price I'm looking at. So that's the price. Like, you have to understand, and you know this, Chinese phones are generally sold with two ROMs, like a China ROM that has a whole bunch of tie-ins with, some of the services in China. And so the phone is cheaper there because it's subsidized by these services that kind of come pre-installed, kind of like think Windows, when they put all this crapware on Windows, and your 300 laptop costs 200 instead now, because you're willing to take all the McAfee you can take, so China ROM, I'm talking about global ROMs. So I'm talking ROMs that have GMS and Google support. Yeah. Those ROMs that makes the phones a little more expensive at export. And so comparing the export global price of like the Oppo Find N5 and the Honor Magic V5 and to the Z Fold 7, I think they're still a little cheaper. But it's hard to compare because we don't have a US amount, right? Mm-hmm. I can only compare like UK pound to UK pound or like euro to euro or maybe Hong Kong dollar to Hong Kong. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and even a couple of $100 difference isn't that much when you're talking about 2,000, 2,100. If it was like, well, the Chinese, alternative is like $500 or $600.
No, it's
less,
not that much.
It would be a big difference, right? But
I mean,
$200 when you're already up to 2,100, not a big.
Absolutely, they're marketing these in China as well as like super high end flagship, the best we can make, right? So they're not gonna. Like, there are some brands like Techno who makes foldable phones that are, more affordable, but that's not where we're going here. Like, so I think it's actually interesting because price is definitely something we should talk about. I personally don't care because here's the way I look at it. And again, me, I like to buy my phones unlocked. And so I should be the first one to complain about the full price of this phone. But the reality is 90% of the people, even my listeners who are early adopters, tech savvy, they're all kind of locked into a family plan or some kind of plan, and they're going to buy it subsidized. That's the reality, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I'm one of the few people that I know who doesn't get all the iPhone review units and goes out and buys some of the iPhones every year and sells them every year and buys them unlocked from Apple full price. And I trade in whatever last year's model if I wasn't able to privately sell it, right? Mm-hmm. That I don't think is the reality for most people. And in that sense, if you're looking at a monthly payment, this phone, the fact that it's $100 more than last year is not going to make a huge difference. No. But it's the psychological
for sure
kind of $2,000 for a phone.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. Now, how do you feel about the lack of S Pen support? You probably already talked about it on your podcast. Doesn't really bother me that much, but I'm not an S Pen user.
It's interesting because that's actually one of the things we haven't really discussed too much. Personally, I don't care. I don't use it, but I know that, I'm trying to be, I'm trying to be mindful of other people because I know the people who do use the S Pen really love it.
Passionate.
And if you are a user right now that is coming from a previous Z Fold with S Pen support, this is definitely going to be a deal breaker for you. And I feel you. I get it. Because here's the thing. Again, Oppo Find N5 has active digitizers front and back, same thickness. The pen is optional. You have to buy it from Oppo, but it does have pen support. So, hello, Samsung. What gives, right? So does Honor with the Magic V5, which is slightly thinner even. So, it's tough. Let's get into some of the things that bug me about this one, because I think that the package overall, especially for the West here, especially for North America, is unbeatable. I mean, you finally have that form factor, the 21:9 aspect ratio of the front screen. That's another thing that Samsung was always doing, these remote control sized front screens that really sucked. Now we finally have a phone that, I hate to say this in a way, because I feel like the Z Fold 7 is a phone that I'm using almost more closed than open. Whereas
you're not the only one that I've heard say that.
Yeah.
Like it truly is a phone that you can now use close, because let's be real. 90% of the time you don't need a really large screen, but that 10% of the time that you do want a large screen, it's nice to be able to have it. That's why the whole package is really appealing here. It truly is a normal feeling phone in your pocket that also happens to open up to a small tablet size. And you're not going to use the tablet 100% of the time, but that's okay when the front screen does everything the way another phone would do it.
But when you open it, it's like, all of a sudden you have
I can watch that video really large.
Well, it's not just videos. For me, I've been writing entire reviews on airplanes. If I'm flying economy, unless I have like a sub notebook or something that's like 10 inches screen and it's like cramped keyboard, like just my MacBook Air is not going to fit on a tray table. I got a big belly.
True.
So for me, I find that I'm typing on this folding phone two-handed, and I'm actually very productive because I can multitask. I can have a tab on the side with like my, I can slide it over and have a look. Oh, what was that number I was looking for? Copy, paste. It's not as productive as a full-on tablet or a full-on laptop for sure, but
Mhm.
For writing, I'm finding that, now that I've had a few phones, the folding phones that are this form factor book style, that are thin and light and have a standard front screen aspect ratio and a large internal screen, I've been really using them as normal phones most of the time. And then when I really want to okay, let's get real, that's kind of something to be said. Like, I don't like tablets. I don't like carrying them. Like, I'd rather have my MacBook Air or a laptop, like a Chromebook, or even like one of those awesome Snapdragon X laptops, like my Asus A14, which I love, which is way lighter than my MacBook Air. But I'd rather have that than anything else. But then if I don't have that, I will just every time take a folding book style phone with me as my backup. So that's
a really great way to put it, though, when you're on play, because I'm a ridiculously tall person, right? I'm 6'7", almost 6'8". I barely fit on most airplanes, without going into like business class, which I never do. And so fitting a laptop, like, I always want to do work on a plane. It's always really uncomfortable. With what you just said there with the foldable, I'm like, oh God.
I mean, I fly enough that I've been able to put this to the test. Like, most of my flights inside the US are economy flights. Most of my flights abroad, thankfully, are business class. So then I get to experience like spread out and use my laptop and be comfy and everything. But the point I'm making is that I think this is kind of like the unsung hero part of this story. Like, you can get productive on a device that's basically a tablet, but it's not. Some people are going to be like, well, my tablets still have a bigger screen. And then, with some of the cases, you can bring that screen, like, it's like, it does that zigzag thing on the bottom. So the screen is closer. So then if they recline their seat, it works. It's even better. I'm like, yes, it's even better. I agree. But it's a third device you're carrying. For me, I'm never going to not carry my laptop. Okay. That's never going to happen. So at that point, do I carry like a OnePlus Pad 3 or iPad, or like, no. So that's kind of, like the things that I think are most people haven't experienced with the existing Z Folds that we're now able to experience with the Fold 7. In that sense, that form factor change and the fact that it's available in our markets and with an ecosystem and software and support and carriers is huge. So I don't want to, because my criticism is going to be very strong, and I don't want people to feel like they shouldn't go buy a Z Fold 7. The things that bug me about this, big time: battery life, the battery technology, the charging speeds, and the telephoto. The telephoto is a freaking disaster on this phone. I don't know if it's just my device, but
I did not play with the telephoto. I did test out the wide angle, because that was kind of the big upgrade.
So here's what people have to understand. This is kind of a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde kind of situation here, because this phone is essentially a weird, Frankenstein combo of the Edge, the 25 Edge, the exact same ultra wide, the exact same 200 megapixel sensor, which is, by the way, slightly different, not the sensor, but the actual optical stack than the Ultra, because it's thinner. So they took everything they learned from the Edge and applied that to the Z Fold 7. All of that stuff is great. I have no issues with ultra wide, no issues with the main sensor. But then they made this kind of terrible mistake of taking the telephoto from the Z Fold 6, Z Fold 5, Z Fold 4, the same one, 10 megapixel, 3x. Now, per se, it's fine. It's just the way they're doing the software. So here's the thing. If the main sensor was 50 megapixel, that 3x telephoto would actually make a difference. It would give you better zoom at anywhere beyond 2x. But the problem is we have a 200 megapixel main sensor that can do 4x without any major degradation in quality. So when you have a sensor that can do 4x, why would you bother with a 3x telephoto? What they really needed is a 5x telephoto. But you're going to say the Oppo has a 3x telephoto. A lot of the folding phones from China have a 3x telephoto. Yes, but it's 50 megapixels. The sensor is literally 4 times bigger, okay? So you gather more light. You can do pixel binning. And of course, their main sensor is only 50 as well. It's also a large sensor, but so it's much more balanced, the camera system on the Oppo or the Honor. It's more like a regular flagship where it's 50-50-50 or 8-50-50 or 50-50-40, whatever. They're high quality cameras. And the only time they make a compromise is with the ultra wide, like Oppo has an 8 megapixel ultra wide. But honestly, it's just good as the 12 megapixel ultra wide on the Edge or the Z Fold 7. So it's that telephoto because it adds nothing. In fact, it detracts because as soon as you get to 3x, it switches to that. And then you're losing all the benefits of that massive 200 megapixel sensor. And in the past, Samsung has done fusion in software of the two sensors, taking the best of both. But they're not even doing this year. It feels like they're just sitting back on their laurels, going, "Yeah, whatever. We have it." It's basically like, you remember how I've mentioned this on your show many times before, like the sticker cam problem. This is a sticker cam. They could not remove the telephoto because the optics of it, like the impressions they would give to people would be, oh, come on, because they did that on the Edge and a lot of people complained. But the reality is the Edge can do okay up to 4x, no problem, even 6x. And then it starts falling apart. Then it needs a telephoto. But that's the case with any flagship. The same with the difference between a Pixel 9 and a Pixel 9 Pro. As soon as you hit that 5, 6x is where you really need that telephoto to kick in. And guess what? The Pixel has a 5x telephoto, right? Like the Pro. So this is where they needed either a 5x telephoto or a 3x with a bigger sensor. And they didn't do that. And so the end result is that the results, like in terms of zooming, anything beyond 2x is no better than the Edge. Even though the Edge can only stop at 10x zoom, and on paper the Z Fold 7 can give you 30x, anything up to 10x is about the same quality as the Edge. And then beyond that, it degrades so fast that it's completely unusable. So why? And on top of that, I'm having focusing issues with mine. I don't know if it's just my unit, but in low light, it just hunts a lot. And you sometimes get a shot that's just out of focus, and you have to tap and force it to focus, and on a $2,000 phone, it's not good.
Well, no phone is perfect, I guess.
And I think some people are going to say, we don't care, Miriam. You know what? It can do up to 3x telephoto. That's all I really need. And it's true. Right. At 3x, it's fine. At 4x, it's still okay. But the competition is doing so much more. Like, here's the thing. I can zoom in with my Oppo. I can zoom into 20 or 30x and still get totally usable pictures, like no blobby crap, because they use AI to extrapolate what they see, right? Like, that's the other thing. You can turn that off. And even OnePlus, have you played it with OnePlus 13? It does this too. This is an Oppo BBK Group OnePlus Vivo thing. Realme has it as well, where they use AI up to a certain point. I think it's when they get to about 6x on the 3x telephoto or beyond that, they start basically making stuff up with generative AI. They're like, this is a boat. I'm going to draw a boat. Like, and based on what they have. This is a moon. Yeah, well, AI moon. Yeah, like that's AI moon. But the point I'm making is that they do it really well, and you can turn it off if you don't want it. But none of this is happening with Samsung, yet they have the chops to do it. And
yeah, for sure they do.
I don't get why they went, like, I feel like they got sloppy on this one. And I think that that's something they need to improve. And then, of course, battery life, I could go on, but it's not bad. It's fine. If you are used to like the North American, Western way of using a phone, of every night you plug it in and charge, and you don't care how long it takes to charge, and you're going to, we'll get you 1 day of battery life in most circumstances. And in some hard, heavy use days, you might need a battery pack. But that's the truth on every phone basically sold in the US, because they all have crappy battery life except the OnePlus 13. But all the Chinese phones give you 2 days all the time, every day, all the time.
And so is it a normal thing in markets like China where more people just aren't plugging in on a regular basis?
Yeah, and when they do, they expect it to charge in 10, 15 minutes because they want 80 watt or 120 watt charging. They go shower and they come back.
But could those phones last for 7 years with that kind of intensity? Because here's what's happening. Most of these silicon carbon batteries, at least the ones on the BBK Group is coming out with and Xiaomi's coming out with, are guaranteed for 1,600 life cycles. Okay. That's way more than the 800 that we see on regular normal batteries usually, right? So here's what's happening. I'm getting phones from China right now, not from China, Chinese ROM, like global phones from China that's with like in the mid-range and the budget segment right now. They're at 7,000 milliamp hour battery with an 8 millimeter thickness. We're going to talk about that with the Realme later. That is this is my third phone now that I've received from a Chinese manufacturer. That's a less than $300 phone that has a 7,000 milliamp hour silicon carbon battery and charges at 80 watt. Charges at 80 watt. Like, I'm not asking Samsung to put 7,000 milliamp hour in their Fold, but
Oppo has 5,600 milliamp hours. Honor is 5,800 milliamp hours. And they charge at 66 watt for Honor and 80 watt for Oppo. So I'm expecting to have at least that level. And, I think Samsung and Apple, and I've talked to the Pixel guys too at I/O, like the team that makes Pixel, and they're like, no, we're not doing silicon carbon. It's not a proven technology. It's not safe. It's not. I'm like, you're full of crap. Like, I've been using silicon carbon phones for 3 years. I've had zero issues with them.
It's been a few years. Things are going okay.
Like, and the fact that they're making these budget phones with guaranteed 1600 life cycle with 7,000 milliamp hour that charge at 80 watt. I know we have legal restrictions on the size of batteries in the US. A single cell can only be up to 20 watt hour, right? Mm-hmm. But all these phones that have these large batteries are multi-cell, right? So because when you want to charge at 80 watt, you want to charge in parallel. You're charging two cells at the same time in parallel. That's how you get the speed. So OnePlus has a bigger than 6,000 milliamp hour battery, and there were OnePlus 13, and it's sold in North America, no problem, because it's dual cell. So I think these folding phones are inherently dual cell. There's one cell on each side, right? So
why not?
Give me my stuff.
Now, give me my stuff if that increases the size at all. I
mean,
it doesn't necessarily need to,
point.
Because silicon carbon won't take up the space.
You'll get a 15% improvement in battery life no matter what you do. All they have to do is put a silicon carbon battery in the exact same space. Yeah. And we'll all win.
I mean, I will say, my main comparison point for silicon carbon technology, for the most part, I mean, I guess the most recent OnePlus phones, yes, but the one that I really live with on a regular basis is my OnePlus Watch. The last two generations had silicon carbon, and prior to this watch, I was very used to plugging in every single night. When I got the first one with silicon carbon, it took me a long time to reprogram myself, because I was like, well, no, why wouldn't I charge it every single night? It's the easiest thing. I just plunk it on. Now I am firmly in the camp of like, oh, I only charge it when I need to, and it goes 4 days before I need to do that. So, so I'm sure my habits would change if I had on the regular a phone that benefited from it.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, right? Like, I think that if you could do it, why wouldn't you do it? Even if people charge every night, even if they go to bed and their phone is at 45%, and they go like, well, I've only used half my battery today. So what? Like, charge your phone, charge it to 80%. You can even make the battery last longer now, because you have all this reserve extra juice. Like, it's just a win all across the board. The only thing I can see for Samsung is that they're still traumatized by the Note 7 debacle, right? So, they need to go to therapy and get that fixed somehow.
Well, that's true. And God, I'm trying to find an article that I wrote for ZDNet. It was specific to the Z Flip, just kind of taking a look at some of the rumors around battery technology. Samsung, of course, has mentioned that it's dabbling in, it's interested in silicon carbon. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's coming to the next generation. But there's also another technology that they were talking about, the SUS still use stainless canister battery casing, that also does this. Apparently, Apple's potentially working on this for the iPhone 16 Pro Max. And so Samsung's working towards this direction based on some of the rumors we've seen. So it's highly likely, I mean, it's at least likely that next year's foldables will have improved battery. Yeah, they
have to. I mean, that's the thing. Like, China's not sitting still. Like, as I said, I am getting phones with 7,000 milliamp hours. I guarantee you, and I've been saying this, I think, for the fourth podcast in a row now, that I expect that by 2027, 28, we'll have 10,000 milliamp hour budget phones that are 8 millimeters thick, like there's normal thickness. It's going to happen. It's happening. And then what? Like, then we expect our flagships to be like, at least 7 or 1,000 or something. Like, I'm okay with the folding phones being slightly below the flagships, but even the flagships in North America right now, the Samsungs and the Googles and the Apples are not competitive. Like, when you see what China's coming out with, like, it's just not good, And so, and then the charging speeds, like Oppo is the Find N5, right? The folding phone, exactly the same form factor as the Z Fold 7, has that massive battery in it, but it also has 80 watt charging wired and 50 watt wireless.
50 wireless.
50 wireless.
They're mad.
Right? And that's what I'm saying. It's
mad, awesome.
Can we please,
that's pretty cool.
Can we please, Samsung? Can we please, Apple? Can we please, Pixel? Can we get on board here? Can we get with the program? It's
Can
time.
you break
It's
us
time.
off a piece of that?
So
Big Cat
anyway,
Bar.
I think this is a phenomenal phone. If
Yeah.
you can live with, just like the Edge, right? If you can live with battery life that's going to give you a day, yes, but not a day of intense heavy use, especially with the inner screen. If you use the outer screen a lot, you'll be fine. And if you can live with this, not zooming past 4x really to get reasonable quality photos, then fine. But if, like me, you've tasted, the forbidden fruit of the Orient, it's a little problematic because I spent 4 months with the Oppo and I got really comfortable with the charging
Get used
speeds
to
and
it.
the
It's hard
battery
to
life.
go back. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the telephoto is pretty great. So let's see what happens. Do you want to switch gears and talk about the Z Flip a little bit?
I mean, we might as well. I've got that here as well. I'm actually, it's part of my plan this evening while I'm watching Braindead TV with the family. I'm going to be moving over into this phone coming from, do I even have the phone that I've been using? Oh yeah, the Nothing Phone 3.
Oh yeah, great
I've
phone.
got a review of that hitting at probably the end of the week, early next week. I've got a video review of that. And I'll talk about it on Android Faithful. But yes, I'm moving into the Z Flip 7, which the fine folks at AT&T sent me for a review. So I'm happy about that. And I haven't really played much around with it. But, design wise, I mean, it's a nice looking phone. I don't get the same kind of like, oh my goodness, this is super thin feel to it necessarily, that you can't help but notice when you've got the Z Fold. Like the first thing you notice is,
you're like, oh my
goodness,
God.
this is so thin.
Yeah.
And you don't get that with the Z Flip. But it's a solid looking device. The improved cover screen and everything is good. I don't know. I have to do some playing around with it for sure. I'm at the beginning of my adventure, let's say.
Sounds good. I'm the same. I mean, I've only had for a week, and also from our fine folks at AT&T, here's my device and all its glory. And mine is the blue one. You got a black one. Interesting.
I got the black one. None more black.
Here are my apps on the front panel. You have to like jump a few hoops to get that going.
Yeah.
So, I want to thank AT&T because they've been generously providing this phone. And also, you can actually get this phone from them without getting the most expensive plan, which is cool. And they have pretty crazy trade-ins right now up to $1,100. So check it out. Go to AT&T.com or whatever it is. So far, my take on this is finally caught up with Razer, except for the fact that, it's still not super easy to use those front apps. And I feel like, again, you have to, like, here are my selection of front apps. And I think you have to be a little, a little bit of hunting to get there. And I think that having a phone that is designed, have a cover screen designed for widgets first versus apps first, which is what Moto is doing, is I think there's something to be said there because the average user might not care about running apps in the front. But when or if they do, they'll find that to be a great way to save battery life and to have this really compact handheld form factor. And I don't know, I think that Samsung's underestimating the smartness of their customers here. I feel like we could definitely do this, right? Like I feel like the Razer is doing it better. And so
I don't have my Razer Ultra powered up, but I did, in my review of the Razer Ultra, and this is one of the things I'm very curious to check out, between the Razer Ultra and the Z Flip 7 is just the amazing kind of like palm-sized capability of that cover screen. I spent more time with this phone cradled in my hand like this as I'm walking around than I did, with it open, because once it's open, it's just this tall landscape that's hard to do one-handed. You got to go both hands. And I want to see how that compares to the Z Flip 7 in my review there, by comparison.
And again, very satisfying sound.
Yes, indeed. And, if you do it right, you can also do the switchblade open.
No.
I'm always afraid it's going to
drop
it. Yes.
This is how you drop it. And I have to say, the hinge is still also a little harder to open with because of the thickness here. Here's the thing. we should also cover the news. So I want to just rapid fire through a few thoughts on this phone.
Sure.
Because I need a bit more time to kind of really give you a review. But so far, battery life is fine. It's only 100 milliamp hour less than the Z Fold 7. And the Z Fold 7, I said, I've ran into difficulties with battery life because I'm a heavy user from having all these previous Chinese phones, which have spoiled me. But on a flip phone, I'm pretty happy with the 4,300 milliamp hour that they have. Again, charging speed, 25 watts, a bit of a pain. I really I'm not asking for 80 even. Like Samsung, if you could just give us 45 like the Ultra, that'd be great. So I don't know, we'll see. But the cameras are surprising. Here's the thing. There's something to be said, like Google, about using the same sensors over and over again and iterating, because this camera system, here's the thing, okay? At 10x zoom, this Z Flip 7 takes better photos than the Z Fold 7 at 10x zoom.
That's interesting.
And it doesn't have a telephoto. And I tell you why that is, in my opinion. Because they've tuned the sensor. The 50 megapixel sensor is so well tuned, and they're using probably a bit more compute to make a bit more out of that sensor to get that zoom performance too. And now it's still not as good as, again, a dedicated telephoto on like the Oppo Find N5 or a Galaxy S25 Ultra or a Pixel 9 Pro or something like that. But for a non-telephoto phone, it's about as good as it gets at 10x. It's like the Edge. It's about as good as it gets at 10x, and it's usable. But I feel like the Z Fold 7 at 10x, despite having extra hardware for a telephoto, is not even in the same league. And it's like, how is that possible? And it's so bizarre. I think that, it might even outdo the Edge, the Z Flip 7 at 10x. It's that good. The camera is really well sorted, and it's really just about, software and imaging pipeline more than anything else. And then there's, displays are great. It's nice to have that big front screen now. And yeah, overall, I think this is a solid phone. But in my opinion, if you're going to spend, $10.99 on this phone, right?
Yep.
I would look at, if you can live without an ultra wide, I'd look at the Razr Plus because it's cheaper and it's pretty damn great. But I would also spend the extra money and get a Razr Ultra, because the Ultra, Snapdragon 8 Elite, not Exynos. And,
well, that was one of my questions that I had for you, because, I feel like you're pretty, one of your strengths is kind of knowing the core differences between some of these SoCs. And I see this Z Flip 7 as having the Exynos, and it gives me a real kind of, I'm not concerned, but I just have a very big question mark about it, because I feel like I'm more comfortable knowing kind of what to expect out of the Qualcomm, Snapdragon
that's
chip
true. Look, the reality is
like
it's in everyday use, I haven't noticed any issues. I'm perfectly happy with it. It's smooth, it's fast, it's responsive, it runs all my apps, it, multitasks really well. And we'd expect that. I mean, even Tensor G4 does that pretty well, and so I think that's okay. It's just more like, I haven't run benchmarks yet. And again, benchmarks don't matter for the average person, but it's important if you're gaming, because you can see, especially if you're gaming for like 20 minutes, half an hour at a time, whether you're going to lose performance because this chip overheats. Thermal inefficiency is a big deal, and throttling happens. The Z Fold 7 is the worst Qualcomm phone I've ever tested for throttling. On the 3D Mark tests that I've done, it throttles down to 45% of its maximum performance after 20 minutes. 45%. That's like the worst I'd ever seen before was the previous generation Z Fold and the Edge, which were at about 55% of their efficiency. So they dropped down to half the speed, basically half the performance after 20 minutes or so of playing a game. This is 45. And it's like, it's almost like you put 8 Elite on the box just so you could have the 8 Elite, checkbox, because it'll run at that speed for 5 minutes and that's it. After that, it's like, after that, you're down to basically having like a Snapdragon 6 Gen something, in terms of, and it's, you're going to say both these phones are not for gamers, and I agree. But honestly, on the big Z Fold internal screen, some games are really nice to play. You get so much more real estate. And so now they're not going to be the fastest games. You're probably going to play more like, casual games on these big screens. But I still feel like there's something that's, I haven't measured yet on the Z Flip, but on the Z Fold, it's wow, it's something. And
Interesting.
I don't know if we can avoid that. I think that as our chips are getting faster and faster and are trying to be more and more efficient, there's going to be a bigger disparity between the, what they can do at peak performance and what they can do long term, because you're going to wipe out that battery and completely like burn your hand and destroy the internals if you run it at full tilt, right? Like, because things are getting thinner. And so I'm not sure this is a problem per se, but I think it's worth mentioning because my audience and yours is too pretty tech savvy. So if you're playing games a lot, these are not the phones for you. That's my gut feeling.
Yeah, I would kind of
the average person does not care.
To be honest, yeah.
If you are playing a game right next to your AC unit, you'll probably be okay.
No, that's all you have to do is just bring an AC unit.
Just bring it next to your AC unit.
If you're a hardcore gamer, you'll do that.
There are some clippable fans you can buy.
Yeah.
So maybe do that. I don't know. Like the point is that it's surprising how intense that throttling is.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. All right. Shall we switch to some news items?
Yes, let's do some rapid fire.
Rapid fire, yeah. I love that you use that word too. Okay. So we have rumors of an S26 Pro now. So it looks like...
I don't understand this.
No, this is weird. So the current lineup, last year, this year, whatever you want to call it, is S25, S25 Plus, and S25 Ultra, and S25 Edge. So what we're hearing now is that they were going to replace the Plus with the Edge. So it's going to be S26, S26 Edge, and S26 Ultra, which makes perfect sense to me, honestly. I think there's a lot of leg with the Edge potentially getting better with adding a telephoto, adding a better battery technology, all that stuff. But in addition, what if we now made another phone called the Pro that replaces the S26? Why would you call that? So then is it also a tiny phone? Because that's the one thing about the S25 and 24 and 23 and 22 that made it so awesome, is that you can get a flagship that's actually relatively compact.
Yeah, interesting. I wonder if that means that there won't be that smaller device. You know what it reminded me of? I think I mentioned this on last night's show. It reminded me of like fast food restaurants saying, "Oh, we don't have a small size drink. We only have medium, large, and extra large." Like, well, no, it really is the small. Why are you pretending like it's bigger than it actually is?
Yeah,
I don't understand the naming change here.
So it doesn't make too much sense. I think maybe I'm flagging these rumors as improbable. As much as the S26 Edge replacing the S26 Plus is a thing, this one I'm just like,
you think that's going to happen?
Yeah. I think, it's too many products for Samsung to deal with. And also I think for the carriers to deal with. And I know they have a lot they can do to the Edge to make it a better phone, especially if they adopt whatever new battery technology, etc. And then, we're definitely going to a world where flagships are getting thinner. The trend in China is as they're bumping the battery life up in capacity because of these silicon carbon batteries, they are also making the phones thinner. Every major flagship that's come from all the phone manufacturers in China is thinner than the predecessor by like a millimeter or something. They're not like edge thin yet, but I think we're heading in that direction. I think that in that sense, I wouldn't be surprised since they have the exact same screen size, to replace the Plus with the Edge.
Okay. All right.
Right.
You make a good point.
And then, of course, look, they can charge more.
Yeah, of course.
Right? Yeah.
Of course.
All right. The next one is one that you and I are going to be very excited about because we are both big Pixel fans. Big time.
That's
despite all of its flaws. And this is, again, to point out that all those things I'm talking about on the Z Fold 7 are flaws, but they're not deal breakers because I'm a Pixel user. I know all about flaws, okay? Like I can handle the flaws day to day. So we have pricing on the Pixel 10 series, and thankfully it doesn't look like we're seeing too much inflation considering the Pixel 10 is going to get a telephoto now too. What's your thought?
Yeah, no, I mean, not much difference at all. Basically, the 10 starting at $799 for 128, all the way up to $2,149 for a 10 Pro Fold at 1 terabyte of storage. But yeah, pricing doesn't bug me at all. I think the thing I'm really excited about, and I think a lot of people are, is the recent rumor that seems like it's going to happen. It seems like we're probably going to get MagSafe on the Pixel 10 family. I don't know if that's
Do you
isolated
think it's
to
cases,
the.
or do you think it's real? Like that's the thing, right? Like I don't care if it's
I think
real. I want it to
I think
be
it's
real.
real.
Okay.
That's what I understood from Evan Blass's picture. Did you see the picture that he released? That
I did.
And you're wondering if that was actually a case that we were looking at? I didn't even consider that.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering about. But I could be wrong. Here's the thing, though.
I hope not. Just make it real.
So Qi 225 watt was announced by the wireless, consortium this week, and wireless power consortium. And look, 25 watt is what Apple's delivered with their MagSafe for a while now. So it's interesting to me that Apple is basically driving Qi 2, right? Like Qi 2 is they're a part of the consortium, Apple, of course, but they're kind of inheriting, standardizing what Apple's been doing for a while. So Qi 2 25 watt, if indeed the Pixel has the magnets built in, I'm going to be, oh my God, yes.
I'm going to be flipping.
This is it. We need that. And now hopefully Samsung will follow next year, because this is, if Apple has done anything really, really well since the iPhone 12, and I'm not the biggest Apple iPhone fangirl. I'm definitely an Apple Mac fangirl, but like, damn it, MagSafe, I want so bad. And I have been on most of my phones through cases right now, because they all have Qi wireless charging. So obviously put the case with magnets and you're good to go. But the case is stupid. Like I use cases on most of my phones, especially the ones that I use on a regular basis.
Yeah,
for productivity, because like when you're shooting a car, at an event, you're running around, you're going to drop your phone. Like I don't want to take chances.
Nope.
But I like the idea that I could have a phone that was bare that had magnets. And I think it's adding a case with magnets is a half-assed thing. Okay, it's not the right way to do it. So I
completely agree. I'm super excited if that comes to pass. Now I'm just preparing to be let down, but I think it'll actually happen.
Let's see. I'm very, very. Let's see. I'm crossing my fingers hard. Speaking of phones, I'm actually excited about from Apple this year is the iPhone 17. Of course, the Air is going to be the one I'm going to be focusing on most. But the 17 series colors are out, and that copper color, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
orange.
I was going to say the orange color. Ooh, I really
and
like it.
And that green for the regular iPhone. I mean, the purple has always been great, but that green, I'm really happy with seeing colors.
Yeah, some of these colors are giving me the Pixel lineup vibes, right?
Yeah, well, we saw the colors last week got leaked. Yeah, we talked about that on the show. It's like, I'm glad, like even this blue, right? This awesome blue from Samsung here. Like this, check out this blue. It's so blue. Beautiful.
Yeah. It almost matches your glasses.
Yeah.
Your glasses are just a little bit more saturated.
Correct. I feel like, honestly, I'm glad that we're seeing in the West and North America in particular, where people are very conservative because they always put cases on their phones, so they don't really care. It's like cars, like you talk to the dealers and they're like, well, we don't carry the special colors because nobody buys them. So we carry the beige and the gray and the silver and the white and the black and boring, but it's kind of self-perpetuating. It's catch-22. And so having Samsung and having, Apple and Google now making these special colors is making me very, very happy. So
can I ask you a question though about these iPhones? Because I am definitely not an Apple iPhone journalist in any way, shape, or form. So I have not seen any leaks other than what you have shown me in this article. This like plastic kind of or glass casing around the camera array on the Pro Max, and I think the other one is the 17 Air. Is that like the actual design, or is that like something that they put on dummy units to protect the lenses? Or I'm not sure. Is the design rumored to be this like glass bar?
I'm not sure, honestly. I think that it is. Like I feel like that is accurate.
Kind of has a liquid quality
sure.
to it. Actually, now that I think about it, it kind of fits the liquid aesthetic of the OS, but it also kind of reminds me of Pixel, like with the kind of bar approach. So it's interesting how they borrow from each other, especially the Air one. The Air one really looks kind of pixely.
Yeah. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Yeah, and so the last topic we have is a couple of Chinese news. We have a Realme 15 that's finally out. So we knew that was coming. The Realme number version is generally a mid-range to like maybe 300 and 450, depending on the version. Right now, we only have 2 of the 3 or the 4 that come out. Usually we get a number and then a number Pro and then a number Pro Plus, which is the interesting one. And then there is sometimes a number Lite. So we got the 15 and the 15 Pro. The 15 Pro Plus isn't out yet. That's going to be a camera-centric phone when it comes out, and I'm really excited to see what they do with that. Realme has been doing the Pro Plus as a camera-centric phone for about 5 years now, 4 years, and it's amazing because about $350 to $450 gives you like a proper like 3-camera, full-on like OIS, big megapixels, big lenses, high quality imaging on a phone that costs less money and has like, a lesser flagship, a lesser processor and, lesser specs, but not really too much. They all have OLEDs. They always have 120 hertz. They always have like, all the basics, and they're always pretty like, you see the specs here, 7,000 milliamp hour battery, 80-watt charging on both models, right? Like, there you go.
Very nice.
No wireless charging though, of course, but let's just, get that out of the way. And then one of them has a Snapdragon 7 Gen something, and then the other one has a Dimensity 7300 of some kind from MediaTek. So, like, camera is different as well. You get 50 megapixel dual cameras on the Pro, which is, they have OIS on the main sensor, which is cool. But, 50 megapixel ultra wide at this price point is kind of rare. Usually they skimp on that. And then, of course, the cheaper one has, I think, just an 8 megapixel ultra wide. So it's not as high end. But all this to say that the Realmes are out. If you're in a market like India right now or other parts of the world where you're looking for a really affordable, really nice, well-balanced phone that has a huge battery and fast charging, decent screen, decent cameras, decent processor, in a relatively thin form factor, less than 8 millimeters thick, that's your ticket right there. So check it out.
Some
what are your thoughts
looking
on these?
colors. Yeah, I mean, some nice little colorways, whatever you want to call them, 144 hertz for the display. I mean, Realme is just one of those brands that I have very little direct experience with, but I continue to hear really great things. I hope one of these days I get to actually spend some quality time with a Realme phone and see, put some of this to the test. To be honest.
Well, let's make it happen. If you want to borrow one of mine sometime, feel free to do that. We can make that happen. They send me almost everything. So sometimes they send me stuff that I'm like, why did you send me that? I don't think I have time for this one. But I appreciate that they do it. Yeah, we will. The last thing real quick is more like we're starting to see certifications in some markets like Thailand, Vietnam, etc., for the next Xiaomi flagship series. As you know, they operate on a tick-tock cycle with their bar phones that are numbered. So right now we're at the 15, right? The Xiaomi 15, 15 Pro. I think there might be a 15 Lite, and then there's a 15 Ultra, which is like the insane camera phone, right? So those came out MWC and afterwards, and that's the tick cycle, and the talk cycle is in the fall. They kind of come out with more affordable versions of the 15s, and they always, or of the numbered ones, and always add T at the end. So like last year was 14T. This year it's going to be 15T. So we're starting to see these phones appear. And here's what's interesting. We know Qualcomm's coming out with their new chip, whatever it's called, 8 Elite 2, whatever. Next September, sometime by the end of September is their event in Hawaii. So we're hearing rumors, my little finger says, that Xiaomi's going to do that just before. Does it mean that, and this would be kind of unprecedented, that the 15T series is going to have the new chip from Qualcomm? And that's unusual because they generally don't do this on the talk cycle. They'll do it on the tick, which is like generally the beginning of the year. But everything's been shifted, as you know, because of Chinese New Year's. The Chinese manufacturers have been wanting to ship their flagships earlier in the year. So they used to come out in December, January, right? Now they're coming out November, December. We've got the OnePlus 13 in December in the US, and then in November in the rest of the world. And then, I went to the summit in October last year in Maui, and then literally at the summit, Asus had some, devices to show us. They were like 8 Elite, the gaming phone, the ROG phone. And then literally as I got home, a package was waiting for me from Realme with their flagship with the 8 Elite in it. This is in October. Now, This was a Chinese version of the phone with Chinese ROM, but it doesn't matter because they wanted me to have the phone because they wanted me. That was my first phone that I could benchmark and spend time with without being in a controlled environment. But it happened in October. So this year is happening in September. So I actually think that no matter what happens with this Xiaomi 15T thing, we're going to get a OnePlus 15 because they're going to skip 14, right? Number 4 is bad luck in China, right?
Okay.
So the OnePlus 15, remember, we never had a OnePlus 4 either, right? So the 15, I think I wouldn't be surprised if it comes out late September, early October in China, and we get it in the US in November. It might be the first time that we start seeing Qualcomm flagship equipped phones for Black Friday.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Like not
Good
from
timing.
Samsung, but I think potentially from OnePlus.
Did we ever hear any, totally unrelated, but it just kind of occurred to me. Did we ever hear, like, was it ever possible to buy the modular camera that attached to the Xiaomi phones? Remember that they showed off at Mobile World Congress, that like modular snap-on camera?
No. That was completely a concept.
That was just a concept. All right.
The closest we've come to is Vivo.
Yes.
Has a camera. So all these high-end ultra camera phones from China have a camera kit option, which is essentially a case with a grip, has a battery in the grip, has like a little roller and a zoom toggle and a 12 to 10 camera button. And like, they're really great. A lot of them add the ability to mount a normal filter on the lenses so that you can like have a ND filter or a polarizer or something. And so Vivo went one step beyond that with their camera kit on the X200 Ultra by literally shipping it with a like tiny little telephoto zoom lens thing that kind of mounts bayonet style on the main sensor and gives you like, I don't know, 10x zoom optical. Like it's insane. Like with it literally like, it's like a tube, like think like a tiny little camera lens. And it comes in the kit and like you have this thing that you have to like install every time. Like it's insane.
Long and funky looking.
So, but what they showed at MWC where they took a Xiaomi 15 and modified it, that was just a concept.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, listen, we should wrap up, Jason. Do you want to tell people where they can find you and all the different cool stuff you publish? Because now you freelance it right as well. So let us know where we can find you.
Yeah, I mean, of course I want to. Well, yes. So I am writing now. I write for ZDNet. Used to work for CNET way, way back in the day. And so it's kind of like to a certain degree coming home. So I'm writing about smartphone stuff for ZDNet. So you can look for my byline there. I've got a YouTube channel at Jason Howell. I've got podcasts like AI Inside, Android Faithful. I'm also doing the Daily Tech News Show with Tom Merritt 2 days a week. I'm just keeping very busy. So
I'm
just
amazed
search
that
for
you
all
have
those things.
time for all of that. Like that's impressive, Jason.
Tell me about it, Miriam. I'm amazed that I do too. Sometimes I definitely do not, but I do it anyways.
I hear you. I'm also pretty hectic. And so folks, please follow Jason everywhere. Subscribe to all the podcasts. Listen to him. It's great stuff. Read his stuff. Jason is one of the best out there. So you can't go wrong. Thank you,
Miriam.
Absolutely. And you know where to find me, folks. I'm at Tankerl, TNKGRL on all the socials. I'm mostly busy on Blue Sky, Threads, and Instagram, but I'm everywhere else. The only place I don't have a handle, I think, is TikTok. Well, I do have the handle, but I don't really do anything with it. Mastodon, not super active there either. But please follow us on social. Tell us on social what your thoughts, questions, comments are on the podcast. And of course, subscribe to the podcast, especially if it's your first time here. mobiletechpodcast.com is the URL. There's an RSS feed there. And of course, we're on all the platforms. So find us on Spotify, whatever, Google Podcasts. I mean, it's called YouTube Music now, but whatever. You know what I'm saying. Apple Podcasts. By the way, most of you are on Apple Podcasts. Interesting. There's a YouTube channel, youtube.com/mobiletechpodcast with some random videos occasionally. Like I just did a hands-on with Samsung phones a couple of weeks back. And so youtube.com/mobiletechpodcast. You know how YouTube works. Like, subscribe, tell your friends, click the bell, comment, all that good stuff. And finally, the Patreon. I mentioned it earlier in the show, patreon.com/tankerl. That's patreon.com/TNKGRL, like the comic book character, drop all the vowels. And you get a video version of this show a day in advance every week for $5 a month. Again, a day in advance every week for $5 a month. So that's the perk. Check it out. Help me out if you can. Support me. That would really appreciate it. And finally, I want to thank our sponsor, MediaTek. MediaTek, the world's fifth largest global fabless semiconductor company, powers more than 2 billion connected devices each year and is a market leader in developing innovative systems on chips, SoCs, for mobile device, home entertainment, connectivity, automotive, and IoT products. And Jason, thanks so much for joining me yet again on another Mad Show. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Miriam. It's always a pleasure. Appreciate it.
We'll definitely have you on the show again in the future. And folks, we will have another show next week, so stay tuned for that. Until then, cheers, everybody.